And taking you live now, House Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee Secret Service Director Joseph Clancy getting ready to testify after a string of security lapses at the White House. Also talking about the agency's budget and funding needs, including $8 million he wants to make a model of the White House for training in suburban Maryland. And most recently, two Secret Service officers left a going-away party after reportedly drinking, drove back to the White House and nearly ran over a suspicious package that was under investigation. Two officials suspended. We'll hear what he has to say this morning before the Homeland Security Subcommittee.
This is the door frame. Just possibly move the back in so that we can keep this doorway. Move over one or move it over there. That would be good. We might have some people walking in and out.
That super doesn't look like it's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
If you can keep the cameras out of our face and keep them over there, we'll be happy. Thank you. Is that a deal? No photo op should. Well, no, the last one we went to 2 weeks ago. Covers us. We don't have to tell them. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, no, they didn't. They spent more time on us than they did. Yeah. It's strange. It was. We told our congressman all about it. Told him to look on C-SPAN. It was all there. Yeah. Yeah. Please get there. I did it. Here, you're going to stand that with your knee. Constituents have a right to.
No, you absolutely do. Absolutely. I got no question if they don't think so.
Especially some cameras. Especially two women. Photo authorization.
Welcome. Is that too loud? It's a new system. We got to get used to it. Today we welcome Joe Clancy, the recently appointed Director of the United States Secret Service. In his first appearance before our subcommittee, Director Clancy, welcome. We appreciate you being here and thank you for your willingness to serve DHS and our nation. The fiscal year 2016 budget for the Secret Service is $1.9 billion, an increase of $273 million above fiscal year 2015. This increase is due in large part to preparations for the upcoming presidential campaign cycle, the deployment of the former Obama detail, and additional funds based on recommendations of the mission panel that reported out in December on the need for significant reform in the service. Director, we look forward to the discussion of these increases with you and learning whether you plan to address many of the recommendations contained in the various reviews of your service that have occurred over the past few months. Before ending, however, I want to address an incident that was news last week. According to reports, two senior Secret Service agents on the President's protective detail arrived at the White House complex checkpoint in a government car after allegedly consuming alcohol. As the agents proceeded towards the checkpoint, they drove through the scene of an active investigation. The violation of standing rules of behavior was not reported to headquarters until days later. For an agency trying to restore its reputation 3 years after the well-publicized scandal, this incident brings embarrassment and renewed scrutiny to the Secret Service. Simply put, this conduct should not be tolerated, and Congress is disappointed to see it on display again. Director, I look forward to hearing your comments on this issue. First, I would like to recognize Ms. Robert Allett, a new distinguished ranking member, for any remarks she may make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Clancy, welcome to your first appearance before the subcommittee, and congratulations on your appointment as director. I hope you will find us to be tough but fair partners in your efforts to make the Secret Service the very best it can be. The agency has endured significant criticism over the last several months, indeed over the last few years, and unfortunately much of it has been justified. I, like Chairman Carter and others in the committee, were disappointed to hear last week about yet another incident of potential agent misconduct. This time, the incident involved senior personnel, including a member of the President Obama's protective detail, who drove a government vehicle through an investigation scene near the White House, allegedly after consuming alcohol. Perhaps even more disturbing, if true, is an allegation that a supervisor overruled an initial decision by officers on duty to conduct sobriety tests. I applaud your quick notification of the Inspector General in this case, but I hope you won't wait for the conclusion of the IG investigation to start addressing what went wrong. If the allegations of misconduct are accurate, I worry that they may be indicative of a larger cultural problem at the Secret Service. While we will certainly be discussing that incident this morning, I don't want it to completely overshadow the good work that the vast majority of Secret Service officers and agents are doing every day. I saw that good work firsthand when I visited your Los Angeles field office last week. I was particularly impressed by the quality of a staff briefing in which USSS personnel were discussing the final security plans for the President's visit to Los Angeles the next day. In the interest of time, I won't elaborate on everything I saw, but I do want to highlight one program that the Los Angeles field office is implementing in a very impressive way: the Los Angeles Electronic Crimes Task Force. As you know, ECTFs are a strategic alliance of law enforcement, academia, and the private sector dedicated to investigating and deterring cybercrime. It is a roundtable concept comprised of local, state, and federal law enforcement partners. The ECTFs facilitate collaborative investigations through the exchange of information, shared assets, and common strategies. This month, I am proud to say that the LA ECTF was selected out of 80 nominations to receive the 2015 Centurion Award for Excellence in Investigations from the Peace Officers Association of Los Angeles County. Director Clancy, we stand ready to help the Secret Service regain the respect it deserves for the good work done every day by your dedicated officers and agents on behalf of our country. Thank you for joining us this morning. I look forward to discussing your proposed budget for the coming year, as well as your plans to point the Secret Service in the right direction.
Thank you, Ms. Robel-Allen. And now I'd like to recognize the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Hal Rogers, for any comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here with us this morning, Mr. Director. This constitutes the first hearing of this subcommittee, and I'm immensely pleased that we finally managed to pass a full-year spending bill for the department to support our men and women on the front lines and bolster critical security agencies and fund vigilant anti-terrorism and law enforcement efforts on our home turf. Unquestionably, your organization is a vital piece of this puzzle. The Secret Service carries out a unique but absolutely critical dual mission of protection and investigation. The investigative component of your charge is essential for the financial infrastructure of the country and, by extension, the entire U.S. economy. Your mission is to protect our president, his family, and other dignitaries from a host of potential threats, and that requires discipline and dexterity, unparalleled skill, and, yes, professionalism. Unfortunately, the service has been beleaguered by a series of embarrassing and unacceptable lapses in security and other missteps. This will not stand. Just when we think we've assessed the problems associated with September's White House fence jumper and developed a plan to close existing gaps in security moving forward, news broke that 2 agents drove around a security barricade at the home where our president lives during an active bomb investigation. Drunk. You've personally committed to me and others to leveraging your lifetime of service to this organization to restore the Secret Service to its once storied reputation. I certainly want to take you up at your word and give you every chance to achieve that goal. But incidents like these demonstrate just how far you've got to go and how short of time you've got to do it. We're going to provide the adequate funding for your agency, but it's going to be on a short string. We expect results. Your fiscal year budget request includes $1.9 billion, which constitutes a $273 million increase over enacted levels. In addition to the Presidential Protective Service, this supports the service's network of 42 domestic field offices, 60 resident offices, and resident agency offices, and 24 offices abroad. Notably, this request includes a significant increase to accommodate your responsibilities leading up to the 2016 election and prepare for President Obama's detail when he transitioned out of office. $87 million is also included to support security enhancements at the White House complex, pursuant to the recommendations of the Protective Mission Panel. Mr. Director, we all look forward to hearing how you intend to use this money to right the ship so the Secret Service can focus on its truly critical mission at hand. We want to thank you for taking on this chore and for being here today. We look forward to your answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I'd like to recognize the distinguished ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, Ms. Loy.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Roybal Allard for holding this important hearing today, and welcome Director Clancy, and thank you for joining us. The Secret Service has had a long and storied history of excellence and professionalism, but recent incidents have diminished its reputation over the last few years and raised serious questions about its ability to protect the president. Clearly, we have a lot to discuss. Just last July, through the report accompanying the House funding bill, this committee expressly stated that it was, and I quote, deeply disappointed with recurring allegations of misconduct within the Secret Service. Going a step further, we withheld a substantial amount of headquarters funding in the FY15 appropriations bill until new guidelines for professional conduct were submitted. It's hard to believe, here we are again. Not only were we rocked by the White House fence jumper last September, but now we are confronted by yet another unfortunate incident that appears to entail significant misconduct. On March 4th, 2 possibly intoxicated secret agents drove a government car through an active suspicious package investigation. I say possibly because according to news reports, no sobriety tests were administered. The agents were not arrested, and they were allowed to leave the scene. The President's budget requests nearly $87 million for protective mission enhancements in the wake of recent Secret Service missteps. While I agree that more resources are necessary for security enhancements, hiring and training, funding alone won't be enough to solve the Secret Service's problems. This latest episode seems to be more evidence of a cultural issue that has not been adequately addressed by changes in senior management. Director Clancy, you just recently assumed your position. but you've been with the agency for an impressive 30 years. We want to work with you to restore the public's confidence in the Secret Service. We want to support you with the resources you need, but the responsibility is ultimately yours. You must provide the leadership and insist on the accountability that is necessary. I look forward to a productive discussion this morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Director Clancy. I'm sorry. I'm going to do that, yep. We're not going to recognize you for your opening statement. I'm going to ask you, if you can, to try to keep it to 5 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Roybal-Allard, and distinguished members of this committee. I am pleased to appear before you today to discuss the President's fiscal year 2016 budget for the Secret Service. As a newly appointed director, I'm honored to lead the men and women of this important agency through this challenging time. Despite the allegations of misconduct involving 2 senior-level agents at the White House complex on March 4, 2015, I have been impressed by the selfless dedication of the workforce as a whole and our people's willingness to take on the necessary reforms in the betterment of the mission. With respect to these recent allegations, the Secret Service has turned over the investigation to the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General to ensure a thorough and independent review of this incident. I have committed our full cooperation with this investigation and eagerly await the OIG's findings. Turning to our budget, I want to thank all members for your work on the 2015 Department of Homeland Security Appropriations Act. For a second year in a row, this subcommittee worked diligently to provide the Secret Service with additional resources to support our staffing, our training, and operational needs. In addition, the 2015 bill includes $25 million to begin the necessary enhancements associated with the Protective Mission Panel's recommendations that were included in a report to Secretary Johnson on December 15th of 2014. The panel's recommendations have brought focus to staffing, training, and leadership deficiencies in the agency, and technology and perimeter security requirements at the White House complex. However, since the Secret Service's mission extends beyond the issues addressed in the panel's report, I am committed to zero-basing the agency's budget to determine the full extent of our operational requirements. The 2016 budget builds on the protective mission enhancements that are underway this fiscal year. My written statements provide a thorough overview of the budget request, but I would like to highlight a few areas in the limited time I have. The $86.7 million requested in 2016 to address specific recommendations made by the panel can be broken down across 4 categories. First, personnel initiatives. Second, training center improvements. Third, White House security infrastructure improvements. And 4, protective technology upgrades. My priorities are to staff the agency at a level commensurate with the demands of the mission and ensure that our employees receive the training they need to do their jobs effectively. This includes critical in-service training for our agents and officers, as well as ethics and leadership development. One of the biggest mission demands over the next 18 months will be associated with the campaign protection. With less than 2 years remaining before President Obama's term in office comes to a close, the Secret Service is preparing for campaign protection requirements similar to those of 2008, the last time no incumbent president ran for office. During every campaign, the Secret Service's budget temporarily grows to accommodate the surge in protection requirements. Of the $204 million requested in 2016 for campaign protection and campaign-related NSSEs, a total of $59 million simply reflects the anticipated time special agents in the field will work protection hours in support of the campaign. When people ask how it is the Secret Service can protect multiple candidates traveling between different cities and states in a matter of hours, I point to the special agents who serve in the field offices around the country. Without the support of highly trained special agents who have experience with investigations and protection, the Secret Service would be unable to handle the surges in protective operations associated with presidential campaigns, NSSEs, and other major events. Securing the 2 nominating conventions is one of the most expensive and challenging aspects of campaign protection. These high-profile NSSEs typically last 3 to 4 days and attract more than 50,000 participants each. The Secret Service begins work months in advance to plan and coordinate comprehensive security operations to identify and mitigate threats that could cause harm or protect to our protectees and our dignitaries and to the general public attending these events. For example, to mitigate the risk of cyber attack on critical systems and key infrastructure that could adversely affect the security plans, special agents trained in the critical systems protection are responsible for securing venues that are increasingly automated and interconnected. To accomplish its cyber protection mission, the Secret Service recruits from within the agency's electronic crimes special agent program, specifically the computer forensics and network intrusion responder disciplines. Special agents trained in these areas are responsible for the successful investigations into many of the largest known data breaches in recent memory. Just last month, a Secret Service-led investigation resulted in the arrest and extradition of Vladimir Drinkman, a Russian national who will face charges that he allegedly conspired in the largest international hacking and data breach scheme ever prosecuted in the United States. Superior performance by men and women on the front lines begins with superior leadership. To that end, I have worked to open the lines of communication between the rank and file and their supervisors. I made significant changes in top leadership positions across the Secret Service to inspire a renewed focus on staffing, training, protective operations, investigations, and professional responsibility. I am in the process of restructuring the Secret Service's executive leadership to better leverage the experience of civilian professionals while allowing law enforcement personnel to focus on their core areas of expertise. With the support of the Department and the Congress over the next several years, I am confident that we can put the Secret Service on a path to success for many decades to come. Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Roybal Allard, this concludes my testimony. I welcome any questions you have at this time.
Well, we thank you, Director, for that report. I want to start off with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. What happened the other night at the White House? You know, I was in the Ukraine on a fact-finding mission with a subcommittee of this body when we learned of this, and I called directly from the Ukraine immediately to my staff to find out what happened because it kind of knocked me out of my chair, considering the discussions you and I have had.
Yes, sir.
And first of all, I'd like you to give us the picture you think happened, because I think what was reported in the foreign press, at least, was it sounded like they crashed through a barrier, and the first thought was an iron gate or something like that, ignoring a crime scene tape in a state of intoxication. And inquiries further, it may not have been exactly that picture that we have. So I'd like you to give us a picture of what happened, and then I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the protocols that may or may not have been violated and what protocols are in place to cover the situation here. Alcohol is part of the stressful world that an awful lot of people live in. Outside my courtroom, there was a cartoon on the wall where the judge is addressing a young trial lawyer, and he says, you need to know the most important two tenets of the law relative to trial work. Caffeine by day, alcohol by night. It was meant to be a joke, but it's actually a tragic truth that in stressful jobs, those two become a major part of how people get through the day. But alcohol, as we all know, it messes up your judgment, and there got to be protocols that address this, and we have to deal with it because it's part of the life we have, and we are protecting the most important position on the face of the earth. That's your job. Yes, whoever sits in that White House, he or she are the most important person on earth politically in this world, with more power than anybody else, and therefore more enemies. So, well, talk to me about what happened, and then let's talk a little bit about protocols.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On March 4th, 2015, our understanding is that two senior level special agents came to the White House. The initial reports I did not hear this incident until Monday. So this was on a Wednesday night. I found out Monday. Once I found out Monday, and what I heard initially, the initial reports from an anonymous report was that, as you stated, 2 senior-level special agents had crashed into the White House, and they were inebriated. I had not heard about that. I asked my staff if they had heard about it. They had not heard about it. I had asked them to get as much information as they could on the events, and then there wasn't a lot of information available, but we decided, I decided, to immediately send it over to the Department of Homeland Security Office of the Inspector General. I thought it was very important that we have an independent investigation, that there would be no perception at all that we were involved, that we would not even start doing any interviews. We would give that case or that investigation to the OIG. I will also say that I brought my staff in on Monday, and we discussed why I didn't know prior to Monday of this event. And we had a good stern talk about that, and then instructed the staff to go out to their management to ensure that these events, any event of misconduct or operational errors, have to be relayed up the chain. I'll say that it's going to take time to change maybe some of this culture. There's no excuse for this information not to come up the chain. That's going to take time because I'm going to have to build trust with our workforce. And the best way for me to work or earn that trust with our workforce is by my actions. Now, I know I'm very eager to hear the results of this investigation. I don't know how long it will take, but I am committed to due process. What I have done is remove those 2 senior-level agents to non-supervisory positions. Outside, they're not working at the White House. They're outside of their offices, and we will await the findings of the OIG.
Well, let me ask you. On the issue of drinking, are there protocols set up to discuss the fact that, you know, every one of your people are carrying a weapon? This is purely hearsay. Someone told me that a person they knew in the FBI said the protocol for the FBI is, if you know you're going to a place where alcohol is going to be consumed and it's a retirement party where more than one drink might be consumed, that they expect their agents to report that to the superior, to leave their weapon at home, and to tell their superior that they would no longer be available for call because they might not be in a condition to be available for call. Do you have any types of and I don't know if that's true or not. That's something that was told to me. But this was a retirement party for a member of your group, and it was a party, and people were expecting there would be drinking at the party. Now, do you have any protocols like that in the Secret Service?
We do have a 10-hour rule, Mr. Chairman, where you are not permitted to consume alcohol 10 hours prior to your duty assignment. Off hours, we don't have protocols for off hour going to a reception or a party or what have you. There are protocols for driving a government vehicle. I will say that you cannot obviously be under the influence, not by a legal limit, but you just cannot be exhibiting any indication that you're under the influence of alcohol driving a government vehicle. And that will all be looked into with the Office of the Inspector General. I will say that I did see a very short clip, a very short video footage of the incident that evening. And I did see the vehicle that the 2 agents traveled in, where they drove at a very low rate of speed onto the White House complex. So that's something that the OIG will have, and I'm sure we'll investigate that.
Going forward, are you going to look into protocols that would affect a situation like this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, anytime we have an incident this level, we certainly have to look at our protocols, look at our policies. Are they sufficient? And to be candid, I have been away for several years and was not as familiar with these policies as I should have been. They have to be readdressed. Even the indication that you may be able to get into a vehicle after having one beer, one glass of wine, that's something we're going to have to address.
Well, certainly the DWI laws are pretty rough.
Yes, sir.
Pretty rough. Well, you and I have talked about this. You know, it breaks my heart to think that once again one of the agencies that has been a legend among the American people in the last 6 years has just gone downhill substantially, absolutely substantially, and it's a crime. Our people need heroes. You are an agency that were considered heroes that protected every president, no matter what party they were in, and did it in a very effective and efficient job. And this is really heartbreaking to have this continued conduct. I know you're new on the job, but I told you when we visited, you got a big job, and you're going to have to make heads roll. If there's a place to send people in your agency that is the Mojave Desert of the Secret Service, maybe some people need to be sent to the Mojave Desert so that they know that their behavior is unacceptable. So you think about all that. Chairman's got plenty of hearings he's got to attend, so I'm now going to turn to the chairman for any questions he may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't believe you did not learn of this incident from Wednesday when it happened until Monday. Why? What happened? Why did you not learn of this incident immediately?
Yes, sir, and that's what we're trying to find out through, obviously, the Office of Inspector General.
I don't care about the Office of Inspector General.
Yes,
God love them and good luck to them. You're in charge.
Yes, sir.
This is an administrative problem you've got, among other things. Why did you not get word from your subordinates about this incident for, 5 or 6 days?
Yes, sir. Not knowing all the facts. First of all, you're right, Mr. Chairman. There's no, at the least of the description of these events, I should have still been informed of what transpired that evening. Anytime you have a senior level on the President's detail who is alleged to have even come through a secure area, as he did that evening, I should have been informed. And we're following up on that. And there will be accountability. And I know that our workforce is listening today as we go through this hearing. And they're waiting to see how people are going to be held accountable. And this is my first test. And we'll wait for these facts to come out. We'll wait for that due process. And we'll go back through the reports that were written that evening. We'll go back through and the OIG will interview these mid-level supervisors and going up the chain. But, Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct. And I think part of this, again, goes to a culture of trust. Do you have the trust in your leadership that you can bring this to leadership's attention? And I've got to work to earn that trust, and I'm going to do that through my actions.
Well, your actions, in my judgment, should be punishment, termination, firing people who have subordinated their command. You can't run an agency like this, for God's sakes, or any other agency, unless you have discipline in the ranks. And this is a breakdown, to put it mildly, of discipline within the ranks of your agency, and that's a cancer that can consume you. Now, were these people given a sobriety test?
They were not, sir, to my understanding.
Why not?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Who said not to do that?
Sir, I can't answer that either. I don't know that those facts are have been.
Well, who discovered that this had happened?
Sir, it was an anonymous email that first was published, and I want to say it may have been several days later. I don't have the facts on when that was released, that email, but Typically, in an event like that, there would be some chatter, there would be some discussion if it occurred the way it has been described.
Well, who was the agent in charge at that time at the White House?
There is a watch commander, there's at a captain level who would have been in charge of the White House complex at that time, certainly during that incident with
Who was that?
By name, sir?
Yes, sir.
I believe it's Braun, sir.
Bronson?
Braun, B-R-A-U-N, and my staff can correct me if that is incorrect.
He was the person in charge of the White House detail at that period of time. Is that correct?
He is the second, yep. Yes, sir.
Did he report any of this activity to anyone else?
No, sir.
Have you talked to him?
I have not spoken to him, sir. Again, as frustrating as it is for all of you on the committee, it is frustrating to me as well to have to wait to do this.
Why do you have to wait?
Sir, I don't want to interfere with this investigation. In the past, when we've seen investigations where different people have interviewed witnesses, stories are perceived differently, and I don't want to have any impact on that investigation.
Have you asked Brown for a report on what happened?
I have asked to see the report, and I have seen nothing that indicates any written report indicating that this event, as described, had occurred.
What kind of barricade was it that they broke?
Sir, it was it's an orange construction-type barrel, which, when the vehicle approached, initially it backed up because on 15th Street and East Street, which you may be familiar with, you may have come in sometimes at 15th and East Street. This orange barrel didn't allow the vehicle to go through. It was to the right of the bumper, so they nudged this barrel out of the way. The barrel did not fall over. They nudged it over. They moved up to the checkpoint where the officer typically would be positioned, and it appeared that they were showing their badges to go through the checkpoint. And then that's the extent of the video that we saw as they continued to progress forward.
Why were they there?
Sir, my understanding is that the passenger in the seat, in the vehicle, was returning to get his vehicle. They had been at the reception, and they left together the passenger had his vehicle parked at the White House complex.
Well, needless to say, we want to get to the bottom of it right away. And I'm disappointed that you have not waged your own vigorous, tough investigation of this that occurred on White House grounds by security agents who appeared to be inebriated. To say you're not investigating because you want the Inspector General of the department to investigate is hogwash.
Sir.
What do you think?
Sir, I'm basing it on my limited experience since I came back. I read a report, sir, on 2011, the shooting from Constitution Avenue, that some rounds had hit Constitution Avenue. And one of the officers, I remember reading when I first came back, was that this individual was interviewed 3 different times by our agency, by the OIG, I believe, and by Federal Bureau of Investigation. And my recollection is that each of those interviews was different. So which distorted the facts. What were the facts, and what did that officer truly see and hear? And for right or wrong, that resonated with me, and I didn't want any perception that that we would be. It can be intimidating if someone from my staff goes to one of these uniformed officers and said, "What did you hear? What did you write? What happened that evening?" They may tell me and my staff one thing, and another from the OIG, they may interview them, and they may have a different perception of the words spoken. Words are important, and I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated that we didn't know about this. I didn't know about this till Monday. I'm frustrated that I can't act until we get all the facts, because I know that our workforce is waiting. What's your action going to be? But I just don't want to act improperly too soon. Let me just say this. The president, the first family, they're safe. We've moved these individuals to non-supervisory positions rather than administrative leave where they're getting paid for no work. We can still get work out of them, but in a different capacity.
They're still getting paid.
Yes, sir.
No reduction in pay, no penalties, financial or otherwise, right?
No financial penalties. Sir, I would say that I'm sure they're paying a penalty right now.
Well, unfortunately, this is the last in a long line of episodes somewhat similar: drinking, carousing, on and off duty, that this agency has suffered these last few years. It's not working right, Mr. Director.
Yes, sir.
We got to have some changes, and you got to be the one that makes those changes. And I don't sense at this moment that you have the determination to make that happen. Am I wrong?
Sir, I would disagree with you with that, with all respect. I will say that there is an element within our agency. There is an element within our agency that does cope with the stresses that many of you have mentioned today by using alcohol. There's no question we have that element. We also have other elements in our agency that go to a different route. Some go to exercise, some go to religion, some go to their family to cope with these stresses. But we do have an element that goes to alcohol. 3-4 weeks ago, we kicked off an initiative, a work-life initiative, to look at these stresses that our people are under. And they are considerable. There's no excuse for the actions. We have to take, there has to be self-discipline, self-accountability, but we've got to find a way to help some of these people that are going towards alcohol to solve their, as a coping mechanism.
Well, I'm concerned about their health as well. But I'm more concerned about the health of the President of the United States and who's protecting him from harm.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And if we've got special agents on the grounds at night in the White House, ramming a barricade, drunk, it seems to me that the only discipline that you could exert would be caused by the ability of you and your staff to terminate as punishment, so that every other agent knows, boy, I don't want to go there. That director is going to fire me. That's what makes the mind work. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. I think deep down within our agency, as in others, people want to see discipline. People want to be disciplined. They want to have people held accountable. I just want to respect the due process, as frustrating as that is, and then let my actions speak for how we're going to move forward in this agency.
We'll be watching.
Yes, sir.
And waiting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that.
Ms. Lloyd, excuse me.
Thank you, and I want to thank you, but there are so many hearings today. I just want to follow up briefly, because with all due respect, I'm just shocked by your testimony. First of all, you said it wouldn't have been reported to you other than a whistleblower. I mean, it wasn't someone in the chain of command that reported it to you. And then you said, what really shocks me, it will take time to change the culture. I don't understand this one bit. It seems to me it should take time to help people who think this is the culture to go get another job. How can we, as members of Congress, have respect for an agency that feels it's okay? We're not talking about someone drinking at a party. We're talking about a respected member of the Secret Service who was absolutely drunk. How many people do you know? How many friends of you do you know who may go to a party and then take a car and go ram it into a fence or some other barricade. I find this testimony shocking. Following up on my colleague, I just don't understand it. I would think it would take 5 minutes to change the culture. Before you even know the fact, you can say, based on the allegations, if in fact you are not aware that this kind of activity is inappropriate for a member of the Secret Service, you better get it now and go find another job. That's why I'm so public. I can't believe you said it will take time to change the culture. Can you explain to me why it's okay for a member of the Secret Service to get so inebriated that they would take a car and run into a barricade?
If those are the facts, and they may come out exactly as you stated them, then you're absolutely correct, and that we have a table of penalties which explains exactly how they can be disciplined. And when I said that the culture, it's going to take some time for the culture to be changed. Specifically, I'm talking about if there was an event that night as is described, and let's assume that it was as you described it. Why wasn't that reported up to my office? And I think that's a long-standing process, possibly, where people don't want to relay bad information, and we have to prevent that. But to your point, you're right that my actions are going to determine how that culture is changed. But I don't have the ability to just fire people at will. In the government, my understanding is you cannot do that. It doesn't mean that after due process, there aren't some actions.
Maybe my statement is not clear. Mm-hmm. I understand due process, but do you think it would be inappropriate to send out a very strong message that this kind of behavior is absolutely inappropriate, wrong for a member of the Secret Service? Did you do that?
I did that. A statement went out without going into the specifics of the events on March 15th, although we referenced that. We did put out a statement saying that there's accountability, this type of activity is not tolerated, and that we've got to shape the future of this service.
I guess I just don't understand, because in my time in Congress, which is 26 years, I've had such enormous respect for the Secret Service, protecting so many of our people in public life, including members of Congress. So I just don't understand, even off duty, how a respected member of the Secret Service could get so inebriated that they'd take this kind of action, going into a fence, knocking down a barricade. I don't get why it would take time to change the culture, and that's why I'm puzzled, sir, with your comment. And I would hope it's very clear that if they're off on a Thursday and not on duty, they can get so inebriated that they can go into a fence, but when they're on duty, they understand this behavior is unacceptable. I would think, I don't want a member of the Secret Service, frankly, who's capable of getting so inebriated that this kind of an action can be accepted. It can be accepted when they're off duty, but not on duty. This is why I'm totally puzzled. I don't think there's any doubt that this action took place. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
So is it clear now that it's going to not take time to change the culture? Do you understand why that doesn't make sense to someone like myself who has such respect for Secret Service? I don't think we want this kind of person in the Secret Service. Whether they're on duty or off duty, or you don't want them behaving this way at any time. That is not the kind of person you want in the Secret Service. They can go find another job, frankly.
Yes, ma'am.
So can the culture change immediately? Or do you still believe it'll take time to change the culture?
I cannot terminate people this afternoon, if that's...
I understand that, but can there be a very clear directive that if you are a distinguished member of the Secret Service, whether you're on duty or off duty, you cannot get so inebriated, it is not accepted, that you're capable of taking a car and going into a fence or killing someone on the street. These are people with guns.
Yes, and again, I agree with everything you're saying. I will tell you that, again, the workforce is hearing your message loud and clear today. And we've been stressing this through training, through mentoring, through coaching, through this discipline that we've put in place 1 year ago, so people know the rules. It's up to individuals to have the self-discipline to follow those rules and conduct themselves in a professional manner, both obviously on the job and off the job.
Well, I just want to conclude by saying I do hope you can send a strong message again and make it very clear to the distinguished member of the Secret Service that it shouldn't be business as usual, even if they're off duty, because I know I was the author of the .08 law, and to go get so inebriated that you're going to take a car and go into a fence, you need to be pretty inebriated out there. So I do hope you send that strong message, and changing the culture can be done immediately, not take a long time. And I understand you cannot accuse anyone until an investigation is complete, but you can make it clear that whether you're on duty or off duty, this kind of behavior is unacceptable for a distinguished member of the Secret Service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Lloyd. Ms. Wilbur-Allard, thank you for yielding. It's your turn.
Okay. Director Clancy, I have to say that I am equally concerned by some of the responses that you have given today. And I hope that I misunderstood you in terms of you're saying that you needed to wait for the IG's report to take any action. It seems to me that there are many things that can be done now and actions that you can take now before that IG reports, because I think it's quite obvious that there are lots of problems within the Secret Service, that the incidents at the White House and other incidents are just indicative of those problems. So I want to give you an opportunity to elaborate a little bit on your opening statement, because I think it's important that we and the public hear loud and clear that you not only acknowledge that there are problems facing the Secret Service, but that you're actually implementing an effective plan in turning things around, things that you can do now. Right now, you can demand, and with a discipline behind that, if it doesn't happen, that you're immediately notified of any other incidents. Hopefully, there won't be such an incident. But there are things that you can do now. Also, as you're answering that question as to what you will be doing over the next weeks and months to reassure Secret Service personnel, the White House, Congress, and the public that you are moving in the right direction. If you could also talk a little bit about what you're doing in terms of sending a message of discipline, not dealing with this case, but just in general, that certain things are not acceptable and that there will be consequences. And as reported in the paper, if true, that the incident at the White House, those who were involved in that were actually given a less stringent approach than the service has taken in the past. If that's true, why? And so I just want to give you an opportunity to respond to that as well.
Yes. Well, consistency is very important. I'm not aware of how our discipline or the actions we've taken so far would differ from the past. Now, I haven't been here for 3 years, although I have been briefed on some of those recent incidents. I talked to our legal counsel. I talked to our human resource people to see what options we have in terms of first steps in regards to this incident. I will tell you in general, and we may get into this later, but we are going through a restructuring within our organizational chart, and that will be a subject maybe later during this hearing. But the idea of discipline and to give you examples, before every trip, on a foreign trip, any agent on that trip is given a briefing on ethics and what's expected of them. Before our personnel meetings, before a visit in any city, the agents working that visit are briefed on their professionalism as well as the operational aspect of the visit. But these topics are constantly brought up. Unfortunately, we have an element, and I would argue that it's a smaller element, but we do have an element that is causing this agency great distress. And I can tell you that those agents and those officers and our personnel who, as you saw in the Los Angeles field office last week, who go home to their families, who go to their church, who exercise, whatever, they are as distressed at this as all of you. It's their reputation. They work these 8-hour, 10-hour days, 12-hour days under great stress, and it is a very stressful environment. And then you go home and you see the media reports that we are alcoholics. And that is something that, we've got this work-life initiative I may have mentioned that we've kicked off a few weeks ago to try to address these stresses and how do we handle people that go in the wrong direction. But ultimately, it comes back to what actions do I take and what actions does the agency take in terms of discipline?
Well, that was my question, Director Clancy. What are you doing now? What are your plans now to address these issues, separate and apart from the incident? How are you getting that message across, including, and I just want to highlight what Chairman Rogers said, that the best way to make sure these things don't happen and to weed out those who are the bad actors is for a hard and swift disciplinary action, which could mean immediate dismissal. So what is it that you're actually doing now to start addressing the problems within the Secret Service? More specifically, what are you doing now?
Some of these measures were put in place prior to me arriving, and I think they're good measures. For example, the Office of Integrity reports directly to the director. So rather than in the old days, if there was an issue of misconduct in a local field office, that special agent in charge would handle that. And there may be inconsistencies on the way discipline was handed out. So just over a year ago, this Office of Integrity was stood up to ensure consistency. And within that Office of Integrity is a table of penalties, which is modeled after other agencies, so that we're not standalone. We're looking at the best practices in the industry and in the other agencies. So that
Can I just
Sure.
stop you right there? Because obviously, whatever has been done, you're mentioning this, a year ago, it's not working. Things aren't working. So the question is, what is it that you are planning to do to make whatever these systems that are in place, if they're good systems, to reevaluate them and make sure that they are working so that we don't have incidents like this? So the message is loud and clear that if a Secret Service agent, drinks or whatever the violation is, that there is going to be immediate and quick a disciplinary action, something that really is going to count, like, as Chairman Rogers said, you're dismissed, period. So the point is, whatever has been put in place, whatever's been done, it is not working. And I guess my question, if you're not able to answer it now, but for the record, what are the plans that you are considering or putting into place that will make the system work and send the right message to the Secret Service so that they know that there will be a harsh penalty if they violate whatever the rules are of the Secret Service? That's my question. And like I said, if you can submit it to the record if you don't have all the information now, but whatever has been put in place, whatever has been done in the past, obviously is not working.
I agree with you that it is not working, and I would prefer to put together a document spelling out what we are legally able to do and what we cannot do, and where we would move forward to try to correct this. It's not working.
Okay, but legally, and Mr. Chairman, then I'll turn it over. But legally, can or can't do? Are you saying that there's that when someone violates the rules, is drunk, whatever, that you don't have the authority to dismiss them?
I don't have the authority to dismiss them on the spot.
On the spot?
No.
Okay, but there are rules in place.
There are rules in place where there's a process in place where you make a proposal, and the individual receiving that proposal has a chance to appeal that proposal, and it's somewhat of a drawn-out process.
Okay. Maybe you need to look at that as well.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for coming here. Kind of a tough hearing. I got to tell you, I'm going to jump on, and you'll forgive me for that. Before that, though, I'll tell you, I recognize that you and most of the agents that serve under you are honorable. They're driven by love for country, and they're trying to do the right thing. But leadership is taking care of not the good people in some cases, it's taking care of the problems. And you have enormous problems ahead of you in my case, or in my opinion, and some of that has been talked about. And I got to tell you, as a former military guy, I am stunned by this environment and this culture, and I'll elaborate on that in just a minute. But I think there's two problems here. One of them is this. We have this behavior of drinking and driving and kind of carousing around, and there's lots of examples of it. I mean, I've got 3 pages here that I could go through. I kind of get that. I understand that a little bit. That happens. That's troubling, but it happens. We have to deal with it, as we've talked about. But I think a greater problem to me is the fact that there was an officer who was aware of this, or many officers, at least one, who was aware of this and took steps to protect their friends rather than to hold them accountable. I mean, if anyone is aware of this and they didn't tell you, they have lost your trust. How could you ever trust them again? You may not be able to fire them, but you should assign them to the furthest tip of the Aleutian Islands, in my opinion, because they have lost your trust and the trust of the American people. And they have shown loyalty to their friends and coworkers rather than loyalty to their responsibilities. And I don't know how you say it any differently than that. Again, I was a military member for many years. And I hear you say, well, you know, people are coping with stress. And I got to say, I kind of go, please, oh, please. Because lots of people experience stress. And this is a stressful job, but there's lots of stressful jobs in the world. And the military members experience acute stress. And they would never protect nor sanction the behavior such as this. And I can give you many examples. From young airmen to new lieutenants to senior colonels, in some cases generals, who were caught DUI on base, and they were just gone. You know, they were dismissed. And we knew that. And the military was better because we knew that was the rule. And we knew that we would be held accountable for that. And the American people were better, and our nation was better protected because we had a culture that we simply don't entertain this. And for someone to have done that and then to have one of their peers or a supervisor protect them, it's hard for me to imagine that would happen. You know, in our cases, we were dealing with top secret information, many of us, as are you and your agents. The most highly classified information that this nation has, they have access to. And the accountability just simply isn't measuring up to the responsibility that they have. And I guess I would ask you to respond to that, but I don't know what else you could say other than what you've already said here, except for you know, this idea of changing a culture. You said, Mr. Director, and I understand what you're trying to do, I really do, but when you say, I have to set the example, I have to earn their trust, dude, you don't have to earn their trust, you're their boss, they're supposed to earn your trust, and they haven't earned your trust. And the way you earn their trust is you hold them accountable. And then the others who aren't out there driving through barricades and laying drunk in corridors of hotels in overseas locations, those guys know that they're going to be held accountable. That's how trust is developed, in my opinion. So, I mean, I've gone on for a while, and I'm not berating you. I'm berating this culture that's been fostered there. And if you'd like to respond, please do.
Thank you, sir. We have had incidents, obviously, in the past, and previous directors have, after due process, have moved these people off the job. They're gone. Cartagena is an example where I believe we lost 10 people. They were terminated. So there is an indication that, or there's a history where we will discipline people. But again, I cannot do this on day one. I am frustrated that the agency is taking this hit, and rightfully so, but I have to allow this due process to take place, and then that'll be our first test and our first indication of, are we serious about holding people accountable? Maybe it's as bad as it may be to say this, maybe it's good that it happened early in my tenure, so that we can set a tone as we move forward. Sir, I can't say any more than that.
Well, and I appreciate that. And in one sense, you're right. With an irony, it may be good that this happened early in your tenure, because you have the opportunity now to truly lead and to truly show what your expectations are of these agents. And in my last few seconds, let me just say again, I recognize most of these agents are good people who are trying to do a very difficult job and to do it very well. But the ability and the willingness of some of them to protect one another like they've done, instead of being loyal to the oath that they've taken, it's hard for me to respond to that. It's so foreign to my experience.
Yes, sir, and I honor that. And I think the workforce is listening to this testimony today, and I think a message is being broadcast loud and clear that that's not acceptable.
Yeah, thank you, Director.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cuellar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, I know you're in a very difficult situation. You came in under the circumstances. I feel for you, and I understand, and I thank you for taking this job in the first place. Imagine, put yourself in our shoes. We've heard other directors say, we're going to take care of it. What are you going to do that's going to be different? Because we've heard this before, and without due respect to you, tell me, how do you convince us that what you're going to do is going to be different?
I can't compare myself to the previous directors and what they did, but I will tell you that my focus is first accountability, and this will be our first test, but also listening and communicating with the workforce. And I know that sounds like 101 leadership, listening and communicating to the workforce, but that is, our people want to be heard. And I think that's why there's some of this frustration out there, that we have not done a good job of listening to our people and showing them the respect, so that, again, we have to see what the facts are for this case. But in general, if a young officer or a young agent sees something that's wrong, he's got to feel that when he moves up and gives that information up the chain, that will be respected. That information will be respected. And as we move forward, I have to ensure that those mid-managers listen to those younger agents and younger officers and act upon them. I think too often information is passed up and nothing's done about it, so the younger agents and younger officers assume that nothing's going to be done. If I resonate something up to an upper level, middle management, nothing's going to be done. We've got to correct that. And there have been individual circumstances, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, where I took an action where an individual was not being heard, a young officer. I walk by the White House every day, and a young officer was not being heard on some recommendations that he wanted to make. So I brought in upper management. We immediately responded to that officer in writing, as well as sat down and went through each of his concerns. And we've got to do more of that. And I think, I don't know if, well, I don't know if it's been done that way in the past or not.
Right. And again, basic management 101 as the leader of this organization, I understand there's a lot of good, honorable men and women working for y'all, so you got to look at the morale of the employees, but at the same time, you have to provide discipline when you have to provide discipline on that. So I hope you can find that balance quickly. I want to be supportive of that. The committee wants to be supportive, but I do have other concerns. One other concern is the Pope's visit, when he comes down, will coincide with the 70th anniversary of the United Nations General Assembly, which is a very busy time for y'all. How will the Pope's visit potentially impact the number of foreign heads of state attending the UN General Assembly this year? And just to add, my second question is a little different. You want to build a $8 million White House replica for training?
Yes.
I have concerns about that. Not that I'm want to be supportive, but I have concerns about $8 million for a replica White House. But talk to me about the Pope first.
Okay. With the Pope's visit to, he's confirmed to come to Philadelphia for the World Meeting of Families. We also are planning for New York and Washington. In Philadelphia alone, we expect upwards of 2.1 million people to attend those events. At the same time, in September of 2015, we anticipate, we will have the United Nations General Assembly, and we expect 170 heads of state to come to that event because it's the 70th anniversary of the UN. It wouldn't surprise us if some of those heads of state travel to Philadelphia to view those events. So it's going to be very taxing to our agency. But we've already started meeting. The local field office there in Philadelphia, as well as Washington and New York, have already been working with our local partners, as well as with the Vatican and other federal agencies to start to put together a good plan. So we think, and Philadelphia has been designated an NSSE. So there is funding for that in Philadelphia. As you know, sir, it's two-year money, so we'll use some of the money left over from fiscal year 15 to help us with this Pope's visit. So we're going to be prepared. A lot of those 12-hour days for all of our agents and all of our officers. We'll reach out to our Department of Homeland Security partners, TSA and ICE and Coast Guard for support. But we're well on our way to a good plan for the Pope's visit.
Thank you. And the other question, we'll do it hopefully in the second round because my time's up. Thank you so much.
Okay, yes.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for being here today. You know, you've talked a little bit about this. A thorough review needs to be done, and a process needs to go through to let people go if they're determined that they need to go. What are the steps? How long does this take? And it seems to me that if you don't have swift action, it even builds more to this low morale and this morale of complacency that we hear about. And if it's not swift, you know, almost what's the point? You never hear about it in the end. And then when was the last time the Secret Service did fire somebody because of their actions? Was it Cartagena or
in the Netherlands, there was an individual who was drinking on the trip, and he has been removed as well, as my understanding.
How long did that process take to
I would
get rid of
to
that?
our legal.
He resigned, it was a very short period of time. We did the investigation ourselves.
I'm surprised that these officers who drove drunk through a barricade haven't stood up and said, we're resigning. What do you do with them if you don't let them go? I mean, do you trust them? Where would you put them?
Right. Well, as it is now, they're in non-supervisory positions outside of their original offices. One assigned to the President's detail has been removed. The other to the was working in the Washington field office. He's been removed. Both have desk jobs at this time, non-supervisory. Then once the process goes through, then we'll have options towards removing their security clearance. If we remove their security clearance, then termination would be a factor.
It seems like such a long and drawn-out process. I know, you know, if we have problems with, you know, a staffer here on the Hill, that we have the ability to immediately let them go. And I'm wondering where all this comes from, and we'll find out, I'm sure, through the committee what the process is, but it's just amazing to me. And the low morale issue that we hear about, I mean, I understand stressful jobs too, and you talk about you're just not hearing your officers, but it's got to go deeper than that. There's got to be a culture there that you have to uncover that is contributing to this. And with the low morale, how is that affecting staffing needs and people wanting to come work for the Secret Service?
Yes. Well, with the morale, you're exactly right, sir. The staffing is our primary concern because we don't have the proper staffing, although we're working diligently to get back up to speed, and thank you for the funding here, that we're building up our staffing pretty quickly here. We've added additional personnel in our HR department. We've brought in contractors to our HR department so we can build up this staffing. And we're anticipating overreaching our goals in terms of hiring fiscal year 15. And that will have a direct impact on morale because their quality of life will be better. They won't have to have as many days canceled. They won't have to work as much overtime. The travel will be somewhat cut back because there will be more people that we can use for this travel. But the most important thing with the staffing, or the second piece of it, is the training. When we get more staffing, then we can get more people out to our training facility. Since September 19th, we've already taken a big step in that regard. And with the additional staffing, better quality of life, more training, I think that's going to help morale, as well as the accountability. When these types of events occur, the accountability is critical. And I would just also say that this is not unique to the Secret Service, the way that we're handling this particular incident. I don't believe other agencies under Title V, they can't terminate people at will either, is my understanding, and I may be corrected on that.
Thank you very much. I want to see you succeed. I really do. And we here at the committee want to do what we can to be helpful, but we can only do so much by making sure that we provide the necessary funds and exercises that you need and training and all that kind of thing. But it's got to come from within, and you got to dig down and find the root of this problem. And I hope you succeed. The Secret Service has an immensely incredible job, very important job, as you know. One of the most important jobs we have out here with our forces. So good luck to you. We're here for you as well, but we do demand some accountability. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Young, our employees are at-will employees. Their employees are not at-will employees. That's one of the differences.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I knew that you would find that answer.
Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, thank you for your distinguished career in the Secret Service and for stepping up and taking over this agency at such a difficult time. When I was a young boy, I always looked up, the Secret Service, wow, that was it. I would just think about protecting the president and the important mission that you all have. And I share the sentiments with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. We want you to succeed. This is something that is important for our country, and it's a difficult time. We've heard about the different problems that the individual agents have had. I just, after listening to some of the comments, want to ask you this. At the fundamental base of any profession, when someone is going through training, we heard from one of our colleagues in the military. I was trained in the profession of law. This was our great judge, our chairman. There are certain fundamentals that are imparted in the recruitment process and in the training process. You've inherited this, sir. I guess my question for you is, how do we impart the values, the good inherent values of the Secret Service to the recruits and bring that through the training process so that when an agent comes to the point of becoming an agent, these issues are something that he or she would just stand up and say no to? I think that seems to be one of the fundamental problems that we've inherited. I'd like your thoughts on that, sir.
Well, you're exactly right. First of all, in terms of our hiring and recruiting process, it's a 7 to 9 month process, and everyone gets a polygraph, a background check. They're thoroughly checked out. Then when we get them into our training, they are given classes on ethics, professionalism, and it's driven home. Somewhere after that training is where we lose them. And I think that's because of my leadership, our leadership, that somewhere we lose them where they forget those lessons learned. And I think the only way we get that back is by, again, the accountability that we drive home so that people realize that there are consequences to individual behavior.
Okay. I hearken back to the different professions. There is continued training for those professionals who go through either annual or semi-annual updates as to what's expected of them. Is that going to be part of the process, sir?
We do 5-year updates to go back into their neighborhoods and make sure that they're good citizens and so on. We do continuously do training throughout their careers, but in many ways it comes to individual accountability. Each of us, if you see someone in your presence not performing properly, we've got to step up individually and correct it, as well as, of course, the supervisors have to do it. But as an agency, we've just got to work together to try to get through this.
Yes, sir. When can the committee expect your report on the reviews of professional standards at the Secret Service as required by the conference report to the fiscal 2015 Homeland Security Appropriations Act? And as a follow-up to that, do you intend in that report, sir, to address the concerns that have been raised on both sides of the dais today?
I'm sure that will be addressed in that report. I don't have a date. Does anyone have a near future? Yeah, it's in the near future, but we'll give you more definitive dates once we conclude this hearing.
Okay, and thank you. Director Clancy, I do wish you every success in your endeavors, sir. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you for yielding. I've been looking at some numbers over here while we were talking. My estimates, you have about 4,600 people in your agency who either carry a weapon or are eligible to carry a weapon.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you know, Mr. Stewart made a good example. You're not in the Army, you're not in the military, but you have a armed force under your command of 4,600 armed men and women.
Yes, sir.
That's a huge responsibility.
Yes, sir.
It's the kind of responsibility that chiefs of police in major cities have when they have that responsibility. The chain of command has to be rigid to maintain the kind of discipline that is necessary to handle an armed force. It's just that simple. It's a dangerous, by its definition, it's a dangerous group of people, whether it be the Houston Police Department or whether it be your force. Okay? Now the concern we hear is that, and let me say something, on the IG, I think I know why you did that, because you want to make sure this is a clean investigation from the start. But having dealt with, and I'm not criticizing any IGs here, it also can be a place to put something to go away for a while, and they can take an awful lot of time in an IG investigation before it becomes a current event again in Washington, D.C., and a lot can calm things down in that period of time. And having had experience in our Veterans Administration with some of the IG investigations and the results of those investigations, they can be disappointing. So I don't want this to be a policy of, well, we got a problem, punt it to the AG. By the time they get their job done, everybody will have forgotten about our problem. Because I'm not going to forget about the problem. Sure. And I don't think anybody up here is going to forget about the problem. And the IG, I hope, has been told them they better build a fire under themselves and get us a response very promptly as to what's going on here. But in reality, you're the head, you've got people above you in the chain, but you are in charge of these armed people.
Yes, sir.
And there has to be a strict chain of command. The managers of those people should be all over them today. If these two people were senior management, you should be all over them today.
Yes, sir.
And I realize you've got union contracts, you got civil service issues, and all those issues protect the worker, sometimes to the detriment of the agency. It's a weakness that I find appalling. One of the things that, if I could wave a magic wand to fix in Washington, I would think the ability not to terminate someone for dangerous or bad behavior immediately, quite honestly, I think is unacceptable.
Yes, sir.
But it's not your fault. That is the way it is. I recognize that. But in turn, you're in command.
Yes, sir.
You're the two-star. You got a division under your command. And you got to make sure that everyone in your command and control structure are meeting that obligation. And if everybody's just sitting around and watching me talk on television to figure out what it is, I can shoot their ass too.
Yes, sir.
But that's not my job.
Yes, sir.
That's your job and those people in the chain of command. And it needs to be done whether the IG is making a recommendation or not.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a barrel push, barrel bump, and a tape break. But then the question is, you're both holding badges. Why didn't you get out of your car, walk through the crime scene and say, what's going on, instead of being so arrogant as to think you can intrude into a crime scene? That's another issue. If they were stone sober, that's an issue you have to ask them. Are you such a big shot in this agency that you think you can just drive right through one of my taped off crime scenes? And that should be,
Yes, sir.
that should be something that they get called on the carpet for. If they were stone sober, they were arrogant.
Yes, sir.
And part of that you can have in an agency like you have is people who think they don't put their pants on one leg at a time like everybody else.
Yes, sir.
They're supermen, so they can act like supermen. They can't act like supermen. And that's what we really are all talking about up here. Your job right now, and some of these outside reports told the president not to hire inside the agency.
Yes, sir.
And so you've got a big responsibility, because you got 30 years of friends that you've got to also start jerking a knot in their tail.
Yes, sir.
And that's your job. And I believe you. When I met you, I believed you were the guy that could do it. I still believe you're the guy who could do it. But recognize what your authority is and exercise that authority.
Yes, sir.
That's not a question. I just wanted to say that, because I think sometimes we get so off acting like bureaucrats, we forget you are a dangerous bunch of people.
Yes, sir.
And as dangerous people, you have to be within a set chain of command, regulated from top to bottom,
Yes, sir.
or something dangerous is going to happen.
Yes, sir.
And that's what we're all worried about up here. We don't want anybody under your tutelage to get hurt, or to allow someone that they're supposed to be protecting to get hurt, whether it's the president, the Pope, the people at the UN, or whatever. But those are big responsibilities, and I think your chain of command is haywire.
Yes, sir.
Work on that.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Robert-Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me just associate myself with the comments that were made by the chairman. I too believe that you are up to the task and can do it. Last December, the Protective Mission Panel made a number of recommendations for staffing, training, leadership, and protective enhancements at the White House complex. And I have a few questions that are related to that. First, what can you tell us about your schedule for fulfilling those recommendations, particularly with regards to the improvements to the replacement of the White House fence? And is the budget request sufficient for allowing you to fulfill all of the panel's recommendations as expeditiously as possible?
Okay. First of all, the budget request is definitely a good step forward, and the recommendations from the Blue Ribbon panel, the ones that we can do short-term have been completed, such as adding additional posts or some enhancements on security around the complex. The ones that are more longer-term, as you mentioned, the fence. We are in the process of by the end of April, I should get some options to choose what is the best new fence or new structure to protect the complex there. And with the National Park Service, we'll make a decision on where to go with that. But even after we pick and choose that option, then we go into a design stage, about 6 months. then a procurement stage, maybe 2 months, then the construction phase. So it's still going to take almost a year and a half to complete that project. However, we had been testing at our facility some interim measure for the fences, putting something on top of the fence that will deter people from climbing and will prevent people from getting over in a timely manner. So we recognize that that's a long time to wait, a year and a half. So we're looking at an interim measure to go in place this summer if we can get the proper approvals there.
Okay. And the mission panel also recommended that the next director, which would be you, conduct an honest top-to-bottom reassessment of the agency, and that he, and this is a quote, move the service forward into an era and drive change in the organization. What are you putting into place to help you look more broadly at the agency's practices, processes, and activities to identify places where improvements are needed so that the initial training of new agents, isn't lost, and senior members help to reinforce the ethics and the training that young agents get rather than whatever is happening today?
Well, overall, we have begun a restructuring of the executive staff. First of all, with bringing in some new staff members with new ideas and reinvigorate some of the things that we want to do in the agency. But additionally, we're empowering and elevating our civilian professional subject matter experts. Just as an example, traditionally the Secret Service has had a director and a deputy director. We now have, and it should go out this week, a vacancy announcement for a chief operating officer who will be on the same level as that deputy director. That chief operating officer will ensure that the business is run correctly, efficiently, and we've put under this chief operating officer positions that traditionally have been agent-held positions. We're using, for example, the chief financial officer. Traditionally, the chief financial officer has answered to an agent. Well, now we've elevated the chief financial officer so that we do a better job in the budget world. Same with our technology. Typically, that directorate was run by an agent. We've moved our engineer, chief technology officer, now to run that directorate. Same with it. We have a nationwide search right now for a civilian private sector CIO, chief information officer. So we want to leverage their experiences, their professionalism, their subject matter expertise in our agency. Now, additionally, on the operational side, you mentioned the training piece of it. Previous to me being named the director, the HR and the training directorate was all one directorate. I've split them out to provide focus on training as well as the hiring process. But specifically the training, now we're spending a lot of time ensuring that the people get the right integrated training that they need. Since September 19th, uniform division training has been increased 110%. The agent training has increased 78%. We got to sustain that though, and that's why we've got this new directorate for training to sustain that level of training that our people they need. They need that training. So, in general, to your question, we're restructuring the management of the agency.
I see that my time is up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Cuellar?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. The Department of Homeland Inspector General and I think the Professional Reinforcement Working Group have come up with different recommendations. Have you all, well, I know you implemented some of them, but have you implemented all of them, or they're still missing, or what still needs to be done on those recommendations?
For the protective mission panel?
Yes.
I'm sorry. The longer-term projects, for example, you mentioned earlier the training facility out at our Beltsville training facility, the mock White House, the mock-up of the White House. We feel that's important. Right now we we train on a parking lot, basically. We put up a makeshift fence and walk off the distance between the fence at the White House and the actual house itself. And we don't have, on that parking lot, we don't have the bushes, we don't have the fountains, we don't get a realistic look at the White House. And even our K-9, they're responding on hard surfaces rather than grass. So we think it's important to have a true replica of what the White House is, so we can do a better job of this integrated training between our uniformed division officers, our agents, and our tactical teams. In fact, when I mentioned tactical teams, I think special forces, before they go out to do some kind of an operation, typically they have a model built first, so they know exactly what they're getting into, and that's where we would like to be. We'd like to have a good mock-up of the White House where we can train, I think, more efficiently.
Okay. When you look at the Secret Service, you got to look at the employees that are there, and then the employees that will be there. That is hopefully a diverse hiring process. How will you focus on the folks, and I know you've gone over this, but just summarize it, on the employees that are there and then on the new hires that will be coming in, to make sure that you don't compound the problem?
Right. There is, of course, continual training. You mean the problem that we've had recently, the March 5th?
Well, the problems have been going on for years.
Years, I'm sorry. Yes, sir, you're right, for years. We have continuous training. We hit it very hard in our first 7 months of training when they first are hired, as well as that background check that we do. We look for any deficiencies in their background and the polygraph. We lose a considerable number of candidates because of the polygraph. We're looking for those people with the best character. And then we go through that background check. So we think we're hiring very good people. Then we go through that 7-month training that the ethics and professionalism is stressed, as well as the operational piece of our job. Although we continue to train and we continue to give classes on ethics and professionalism throughout their career, I think as much as anything, it has to be, how do we react to these mishaps, or not mishaps, this misconduct? How do we hold people accountable? And I think that's the piece that may be missing, and that's the piece that it's my responsibility to ensure that we hold people accountable.
Do you lose a lot of people by attrition?
We lose a lot of people by attrition. More recently, I'd say, because of their quality of life. When you're working 12 hours a day and you think you have the next day off and it's canceled, the amount of travel they do, and the stress that we're under. And I know maybe folks don't want to hear us talk about that.
Do you lose them, I'm sorry,
Yep.
I apologize,
Yes,
sir. Do you lose them to other agencies, or do you lose them to the private sector?
We lose them to other agencies. But what I've done since I've come here is, for example, Uniform Division. I've encouraged and insisted that these uniform division officers who want to roll over to special agent positions, we've got to make that happen. We can't do it all at once, but we've got to make more of an effort to let them become agents, because they want to experience that side of our agency. And if we don't do that, and we've invested a lot of money in them, if we don't do that, they're going to go to other federal agencies or the private sector. So we don't want to lose them after all the investment that all of you have supported.
Do you, in the hiring process, and I don't know how diverse your workforce is, but do you work with historically black universities or Hispanic serving institutions to expand the pool? Because you're going to have a small pool, and then as you vet them, you lose a lot. But if you expand the pool, do you work with those universities to help expand the pools to look for potential recruits?
Part of this I'll have to go on memory. I know that we did, and then over the last few years, I think just our overall hiring process has been limited, but now we're back on track, and we are going to go out to those colleges. This fiscal year 16, we've asked for additional money so that we can have these hiring fairs at these universities and in these in the military, as well as to get a good diverse group of people that we can hire.
I got about 45 seconds, just real quickly. The Secret Service has a tradition, but lately it's taken a black eye. How do you expect to turn this around quickly? Because we've heard other folks set exactly where you're at. How do we take your new initiative to say this will be different this time?
It has to start with building that trust, and part of that building that trust is how we hold people accountable, and that people's views matter, that we're listening to, whether you're a brand new agent, officer, or professional, that we're listening to your concerns, and then we have to act on those concerns. If we don't act on their concerns and show their value, show that their concerns are of value, then they're going to lose interest, and we're going to have these discipline problems. But we've got to do a better job of communicating, mentoring, teaching, and each of us, whether you're a supervisor or not, have to take responsibility to ensure that these types of events don't happen.
I wish you the best. Thank you. Director.
Director Clancy, you mentioned in your statement zero-based budgeting.
Yes.
And one of the mission panel recommendations is the need for a new budget structure that is zero-based or mission-based as its subject matter. How is this different from the budget presented in your fiscal year 2016 request? What type of budget reform is being considered, and how will it be implemented? How might a new type of budget drive future funding needs? Have you already identified gaps in funding based on initial reviews of the budget? And I can go back over those if you...
No, that's fine. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a fiscal year 16 budget is one that basically I inherited. I think it's a good budget. I think that it's definitely a step forward in a very positive direction. We are in the process now of identifying from top to bottom where are our deficiencies. And that zero-based budgeting, which, to be candid, our Chief Financial Officer has some experience in that from a previous position in another agency. We are going directorate by directorate to see what those needs are so that we can best have our people best trained, staffed, and give them the proper equipment. So we are compiling a list of those priorities and things that we really need.
My friend, Mr. Cuellar, has talked to me about some of the budgeting and appropriating ways they do things in the great state of Texas, and points out that when you have mission, when we know you're defining what it's going to cost to do a certain mission, then we can see where the failures are in each mission, and we can budget and make changes accordingly. Isn't that what you've been pushing me with, Mr. Cuellar? Yes, and that's what you seem to be proposing, which I quite honestly gives us a clearer picture. It gives you a clearer picture and gives us a clearer picture of how the agency is functioning.
Right.
I like the idea. I hope you do well.
Thank you. And we're constantly looking at the emerging threats, as we talked before in your office about the UASs and what we need to address these emerging threats. So that's all part of this budget process.
Ms. Robo-Allen?
Just quickly, I'd like to follow up on the zero-based budget. Can you tell me what the timeline is for completing that kind of analysis?
Initially, we were hoping that we might get into, my Chief Financial Officer just gave me an answer here. 2017, you can expect a mission-driven programs identified budget. So by 2017, we will be well on our way to a zero-based budgeting.
Okay, great. One of the central recommendations of the Protective Mission Panel was to hire an additional 200 uniformed division officers and to increase the number of Protective Division agents by 85. The panel described this new hiring as an interim step, while the agency does the necessary analysis to match personnel requirements with mission needs. I'm also aware that the Secret Service has struggled in recent years to keep attrition from outpacing hiring, and that you have recently taken steps to address that. My question is, are you satisfied that you have resolved the shortcomings in the hiring process, and do you anticipate that the Secret Service will be able to meet its hiring goals for FY16?
Yes, in short, yes. With regards to the Protective Mission Panel and recommending 85 agents come to the President's detail, as of this date, we have 30 that have been reassigned to the President's detail. But now that, thanks to your good work with the continuing resolution being resolved, we can transfer more people into Washington so that we can fulfill that 85 number requirement. In Uniform Division, we are working with your staffs to look for retention measures that may allow us to keep some of these people that are close to retirement or maybe looking at other opportunities. The retention piece is important to us as well, because our hiring, we are going to surpass our goals. Initially, we plan to have 6 classes of agents, 6 of UD. Now we are anticipating 9 agents classes and 8 uniform division.
Okay. My time is up, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cuellar.
No further questions. We want to work with the director. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rover-Allard is recognized.
The budget once again proposes to eliminate $8.4 million for support of missing and exploited children investigations, including funding that has supported activities at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The justification materials indicate that forensic support for missing and exploited children investigations will continue to be provided through the agency's field offices. The Secret Service has a long-standing partnership with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children going back decades. And while I understand there may be a need to prioritize funding for activities within the agency, it seems to me that we should be wary of weakening that partnership. What would be the specific impacts on the National Center if we were to appropriate no funding for this support program in FY16? And what are the benefits to the Secret Service from the existing partnership?
Right. We understand this is a pass-through grant to the Department of Justice. This is a very important mission to us. It has so many good things. It's such an important job. But we offer a lot to our local law enforcement partners. With the forensics that we can do, the polygraphs that we can do for them, and just the relationship building as well. But we can bring a lot to the table to try to help with this very important mission, and we're very thankful to be able to do this moving forward if we can.
Okay.
All right, if no one else has any questions, then I guess we'll end this hearing. I want to say that it's been a tough day for you. But, you know, it's all a learning process, and once again, we're part of that chain, and we're willing to help.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We'll need to go after that part.
Very last question. We're here because
We're kidnapping my kids.
children.
We called
them, we called the take care of children. We got to run around, we got treated like we were.
Scarlett from Russia working next door with my ex-husband.
Because
One of the aspects that Secret Service is charged with, if you're not covering this hearing, is
the financial. My ex-husband has stopped work with Merrill Lynch.
And also
And his Scarlett from Russia.
through dealings with all the embassies and things.
The connections on that and the organized, they ran blue collar and white collar organized crime. They called Secret Service, they came in, they looked around, they found themselves prostitutes, they found themselves bookies, they found themselves drugs, they found themselves crime. That's right. And we saw them take kids out of that thing. We don't put them in the vehicle, babies and women driving like that. We called 911. They called the missing and exploited children, and they came out. And they laughed at us. And they laughed at us. And they rushed us to the hospital. I'll get to
Sorry. How are you? Thank you for what you do.
And our social media question for the day today is, do you trust the Secret Service to protect the president? It's our question on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think at facebook.com/cspan. Here's a look at some of the responses so far. From Wendy Fitzwilliams, I wish they could, but they do not seem good at their job. Mary Ann Reed chimes in, the actions of the few should never outweigh the long history of a job well done by the Secret Service. I trust them to maintain a safe environment for the president and other protectees. Also, Craig Jones says this, dude is alive. They're doing a great job. And from Bill Floyd, no, I do not. And even though I dislike Obama greatly, their job is to protect him. Like it or not, he is the president of the United States. And I don't like it, but they have a job to do, and they need to do it and take it very seriously.